Good evening, everyone. Here we are. It is, of course, the Fruit Nut News. And, of course, today is, of course, the 13th, today, 13th of August, 2026. So, good evening, everyone. Not really much to report, really, from all the shenanigans that, of course, are going on. Hope we're all okay. Having a very warm day. It is, of course, a very, very warm day today. 33 degrees up here in the northeast of England. Not particularly sunny, but very warm. I would say that the wind is probably warmer than the sun, if that makes any sense. Anyway, of course, we had the eclipse last night, which some of you saw really, really well. Other people really didn't get a look in, really. I think Spain was probably about the best place to have a look at it. But, yeah, very, very interesting. So the shenanigans still continues. As the days go by, it appears that the comedy show gets just better and better and better. And for anybody that thinks that this is some kind of a real situation, well, you only have to look at the last, let's say 10 years ago, up until about 10 years ago, the secret societies, of course, as you well know, were very secret, very, 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 very secret, very controlled, very in charge. Everything was planned. Everything was meticulously planned. And then if we sort of go from round about 2016, so let's sort of say 2016, 2014, 2015-ish to now 2026, we have a situation where everything is being brought into the light. The corruption, the police, the pharmaceutical companies, the politicians, the sort of the foreign policies that we've had, the investments that we've had, the whole kind of history, the whole shit show that has been taking place. So I'm just taking my socks off. The whole shit show that has taken place over the last sort of 50, 60 years is all unfolding before our very eyes. And, most people are now becoming aware that, of course, the investments that were supposed to be made into the industries like the water industry, the prison system, the judicial system, the police system, the justice system, the financial system, the banking system, councils, everything. You can now see that all of this is collapsing. And whether you want to believe it or not, there has to be not only a reason for this, but there has to be somebody behind it. So I'm particularly talking to people tonight who are kind of on the fence and kind of sometimes following sometimes following the news and the bullshit, and then sometimes following the other stuff that's going on. So it's now beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is some major force, global force that is working towards the good of humanity and working towards the freedom of humanity, and of course what we would class as writing up the system, making the system good, meaning of course that common sense prevails, etc., etc., etc. And so we kind of when we're doing this stuff, we kind of look at the stuff that's going on. So, let's look at first of all, let's have a quick look at Andy Burnham. Okay, now Andy Burnham has had 250 Cobra meetings in probably the last 24 hours. One of the Cobra meetings, I don't know which one it was, they decided that standing up drinking was a bad idea. They've also had a Cobra meeting on the weather, which they came to the conclusion that it was very, very hot. They've also had a Cobra meeting on disposable barbecues that apparently appear to be very dangerous during warm weather. Now, forgive me if you think that I find all of this funny, but the reason that I find it funny is because it's so outlandish that you couldn't have written it. The script couldn't be any better. Yesterday, a couple of days ago, we had the Secret Service divulging that Donald Trump escaped an Iranian terror shot in an ice cream van. Now, I'm not being, I'm not trying to be funny, but the point is that, the whole point about the Secret Service is the whole point about the Secret Service. That's why it's called secret, because it's a secret. Now, irrespective of whether or not they did evacuate Donald Trump via an ice cream van, doesn't really matter to me. I don't really care. But I just find it amazing that people are actually outraged by this, and of course are struggling to see the fact that whoever's behind all of this is basically opening people's eyes to, of course, all of the corruption. And I haven't been to the gym for a while, as you well know, because I've been working on the outdoor kitchen. And so today I went back to the gym for the first time in probably at this particular time, which is the morning. And of course, everybody's going, "Oh no, Mark, how you doing? You all right?" Da 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 da. And of course, the topic is, of course, everybody's talking about, Andy Burnham and the Cobra meetings. They're talking about the political system. These people are talking now about, well, who do you vote for? They're talking about the contradiction, of course, of Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe and all of that. All of that. Some of them are talking. Some of them are veterans, and they're talking about the fact that the pensions have been robbed off them. We've got ex-police personnel in there. They're talking about all kinds of other stuff as well, which is pretty amazing. And the other thing that was quite amazing as well was the amount of people that are now admitting that they are actually listening to the show, which is actually quite fascinating. It just astounds me. And these people clearly have been following for a while, but of course they've really never said anything. Now, of course, obviously you get the ones that openly admit that they are, but then of course you get the ones that just come to you on the side and say, listen, you know, I'm following you, I think you're doing a great job, but, you know, don't tell anybody. they're the fascinating ones. And of course, you know, they're also talking about the open borders. They're talking about, you know, the illegal immigrants coming in, and also the compact. They're also, all of them are now saying that how is it possible that the illegal immigrants can be, which is a criminal offence, by the way, how can the illegal immigrants be looked after and cared for in our country when, of course, the word illegal is actually supposed to be a upstanding word of the law. So when Nicholas Rowley went into the fact that the justice system is in a dangerous position, and this was in reference to the PC Harper situation, then of course the justice system is in a very dangerous position. So it's really fascinating not only to listen to now to watch these people now, waking up. And then of course we got on about the transition, of course, from, of course, the small boats to the new boats. Now, of course, what we've got, of course, mega dinghies. Now, normally, a boat would carry around about 50 people. Now, apparently, we've got these mega dinghies, which, according to mainstream media, are now carrying 250 people. Apparently there was a story yesterday where, and now this is an interesting one. I'll just recap to the French situation where the police have been. Sorry, not the police. The authorities in the UK have been massively attacking the French police because, of course, apparently we've paid them to do a job and they're not doing the job, which is not unusual. However, what I do find incredible is that our own people, so to speak, are blaming other people for the security of our own country and our own borders, which I find absolutely fascinating. Anyway, back to the mega dinghies. So Andy Burnham says that, yes, boat crossings have decreased, but of course the mega dinghies have now increased, which means that the total dinghy outage, so to speak, is still exactly the same. But what I did want to report was a story that was, I think it was on Sky News, and I was told this by a lawyer at the gym. I've a lawyer recently, but okay, gathered on French shores and strapped together with two outboard motors, bring 5 men over the English Channel. Now, apparently, French police got the and basically rendering them use. It was a very long story that was there, that was then taken off mainstream media. Now, of course, we have to question why. Why was that story done like that? Well, of course, when you think about it, you see, the UK obviously need an excuse to continue their story, so to speak. And of course, if you run a story where French police are now doing their job, that then brings into question of course, the actual whole story itself. So this is a really interesting thing. On the one hand, we are shown footage we're shown footage of people of police really doing nothing on the French coast over the last period of time, and then all of a sudden, the French police do something, and then of course, then now we have, of course, this story where 500 men weren't allowed to leave the French waters because their boat was shot at. So it's actually quite an interesting thing when we look at all kinds of things. And I'd like to sort of broadly expand that. To, of course, all of the stories in regards to, like we've got water, a drought apparently, water shortages, etc., etc. Now, at the moment in the UK, I've not seen any standpipes on the streets of the UK anywhere. I've not seen any water bowsers anywhere carrying water because of the drought, of course. And we have had a very long period of course, non-water. And so the whole situation behind having no water, okay, we have to question, is of course this a made up story to coerce people willingly into not using water? Now, the interesting part about this is that one of my clients, who has a very, very healthy organic garden, has basically let the whole thing go to rack and ruin. We're talking hours and hours and hours of hard work because they feel guilty about using water on the garden. And I said to them yesterday, I said, are you not watering the garden? And they said, well, no, because, we obviously were in a drought situation. There's no water. So I said, I said to them, well, hold on a minute, all this work that you've done on your garden, and you're quite happy to, let go down the pan, the whole of the garden. And of course, the other side to the story is that we've been told over the years that there has been investment in this, and there's been investment in that, and this, that, and the other. And, we've been given figures. We've been given certain figures. Okay. And then, of course, as you well know, we're now in a situation now, of course, where, there hasn't been any reservoirs being built. There's very few new hospitals being built. as we say, in regards to the prison situation, there's very few prisons being built, and yet the population has been expanding at a great rate. And so the situations have been in all areas have been getting worse and worse and worse, until, of course, we have come to, I would say, probably the point of no return, which is, of course, where the money that was supposed to have gone into the system to replenish the system and rebuild the system hasn't gone into the system. As we well know, it's gone to the global elites and their motor racing teams and their Formula One teams and all that bullshit that goes on that we all know about. It's all been spaffed away, squandered away. You know, it's not gone on foreign aid. It's not gone to the Ukraine. It's not gone for anything other than, you know, being laundered away. And, you know, I would imagine that somewhere in the world there is trillions and trillions and trillions of pounds that are sat somewhere, and those trillions and trillions of pounds are actually doing nothing to help the world, to help the people, to help the economy. And over the last few days, there's been a lot of talk in regards to Elon Musk. Now, I wanted to tell you a little story about Elon Musk. Now, a few years ago, Elon Musk asked I don't know whether it was the World Health Organization or the World Food Organization. He asked one of them, and he said, I want to get rid of world hunger. How do I do that, and how much will it cost? And so this organization went away. They did some calculations. They came back. They said to Elon Musk, we need a check. We need some money of around about 6 billion. 6 billion, ladies and gentlemen, will get rid of world hunger. I want you to think about this, because this is really important. So Elon Musk said, right, okay, that is absolutely fine. I've got the money in my back pocket. I'm going to write you a check out. As I'm going to transfer that money from my account. Obviously, I want to know where it's going, etc., etc. But here's the kicker. I want to have every single bit of that 6 billion. I want to have it audited, and I want to have it checked, and I want to have it traced, and I want a single bit of paperwork to be put on my desk so that I can view it. And there remained quite a silence for a few weeks, and apparently Elon got in touch with them and said, what's happened? And they said, it's not possible to do that. And Elon turned around and said, well, hold on a minute. He said, I've got all the people, I've got all the software, I've got all the tracking and tracing systems to be able to do that. Now, do you want the money or do you not want the money? And they, of course, turned it down. Now, bear in mind that this is an organization that is supposed to be transparent and is supposed to be looking after world hunger in the world, okay, and making sure that that doesn't happen. So if people in the world can afford to get rid of world hunger, and the only stipulation of doing that is that everything is tracked and traced, then you have to ask the question, well, why are these people not wanting to have their monies audited. And of course, the question is corruption. Now, personally, okay, from my own experience, and I've told the story before, I'm not going to tell it now. I know that the EU, okay, have never, ever done any form of auditing since they began. So we're looking at somewhere in the region of, 30, 40 years. I don't know how long the EU itself has been going. But the EU have never audited, okay? The Pentagon, we know that the Pentagon during 9/11 was missing somewhere in the region of 3 trillion was missing in the Pentagon files. We know that was missing. In regards to charity, you will have noticed that over the last I would say a couple of years, we have many more charities that are now popping up and asking for more and more money, with some very credible celebrities backing them. And we know for a fact that only about 5p in every pound that is either given to charity or raised by charity gets, of course, to the people that need it. The Pentagon, of course, as we well know, has never been audited. Okay, we have some rough figures, but nobody really knows. I would imagine that Westminster has never been audited. I'd imagine that the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Lib Dems, they've never been audited properly. And so what we're looking at wide-scale corruption, okay, throughout every single organisation that you can think of. We know that Gary Waterman has done some incredible work in regards to the Companies House and the fraudulence in regards to Companies House, etc., which leads to offshore accounts. It leads to the Cayman Islands. It leads to the Isle of Man. It leads to the Isle of Wight. It leads to Jersey. It's a very, very widespread situation. And going back to the water companies, of course, we've got this implementation of a hosepipe ban, and yet on the same day, billions and billions of litres of water were escaping from a main water pipe that had been reported 48 hours before. It was still broken. Apparently, Thames Water didn't have any workmen because they were on holiday. And of course, it as the days go by, as the information rolls out, as we start to piece together more and more of what's happening, we start to see the full picture and, of course, truth of what is going on. And and when you've got a prime minister that is more interested in people that are standing up at a bar or outside or portable barbecues, then I mean we have really not only a pantomime, but we have a serious situation, of course, and And when we talk about taxes and we talk about, generating money and we talk about certain stuff, many people don't really understand the amount of money that is generated by, of course, the government. And when we talk about taxes, the problem that we have is that majority of people don't really sit down and they don't really think about, first of all, the amount of money that's generated, okay? And secondly, where is that money going? Because from what I can see, trillions of pounds are being generated in the UK, and yet only a very small percentage of that is going towards any type of investment or restructuring or rebuilding, etc., etc. And I wanted to give you a stark example, and I've given you this before. In the UK, fuel duty, okay, on fuel is one of the, fuel duty on fuel is for fuel tax on fuel is one of the highest in the world. Now, when we look at America still run on gallons. A gallon of fuel in America is somewhere in the region of, I think it's about, I don't think it's about $4 now. I'm not quite sure. But it's really, really interesting that in the UK, when we changed over to litres, the price of the gallon of fuel stayed the same for a litre. Now, every day in the UK, we sell or we consume somewhere in the region of 40 billion litres of fuel. Okay, so the UK buys 40 billion litres of fuel. That fuel, of course, is taxed. It's about £1. It's about £1.90 now somewhere. It's gone back up again since it fallen a few weeks ago. So it's now around about £1.90. Now, the fuel duty on that £1.90, okay, is about £1. So bear in mind that we sell 40 billion litres, okay, and £1 of that money is fuel tax. That means that every day in the UK, £40 billion is generated, okay, excuse me, £40 billion is generated from the sale of a byproduct, a waste product, of course, of the chemical industry. Okay, so of course, pharmaceuticals and chemicals are massive, massive business, and fuel is basically just a byproduct. But £40 billion is generated every day. Now that means that every week, okay, 280 billion is made by fuel duty sales alone. Okay, and then of course we skip over to Norway, who basically take North Sea oil, and they've created I think it's a 2 trillion wealth fund, okay, where Norwegians benefit from the investment of the 2 trillion, and that money that is made from the 2 trillion is invested in, of course, not only the Norwegian economy and infrastructure, but also the Norwegian people. The Norwegian people get a very healthy dividend from the 2 trillion that is invested. Now, Norway's not a massive country. I am actually trying to find out how much of a dividend the Norwegian people get paid, because I'm quite interested, okay, in that. Now, of course, the question remains, okay, why is the UK not, of course, giving the fuel duty money back to the economy, or even back to the people in some way, shape or form? I don't know, 100 quid a month, 200 quid a month. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, so this of course is all leading us to not only open our eyes, but it's also leading us to start thinking and doing some actual calculations. Now, obviously, at the moment, we've got this situation with the prison situation, okay, and the massive amounts of spending that are going on the prisons, and also the illegal immigrants. So let me just give you a few figures which might astound you. 90,000 prison spaces are available in the not available, but are in the UK. Okay, 20,000 inmates are Muslims. 20,000 illegal immigrants and legal immigrants are in prison. So that leaves a British population of around about 50,000 about 50% in prison. There's about 87,000 prisoners with roughly 90,000 places. Now, according to the Home Office, there is 500 spare prison cells available. This is why apparently they're letting out people. However, what they haven't told you is 1,500 prison cells are available. Unfortunately, they haven't got a smoke alarm in. I'll leave that one with you. Okay? Smoke alarm, I don't know, 10 quid, plug it in, bang do dingy dang, away you go. Don't forget the prisons themselves, or the prison is occupied by wardens, etc., etc., 24 hours a day. So in actual fact, even though health and safety may deem a smoke alarm important, in actual fact, the prisoners are relatively safe because they're covered by, of course, staff. So the health and safety that you would have in your home, or let's say in a building that you had your own business, would be a little bit different to a prison, because the prison is occupied by prison people who are looking after the inmates. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. Anyway, it costs somewhere in the region of £55,000 per year to basically house a man. It costs £85,000 a year to house a woman, and £306,000 to house a younger criminal. That's interesting. Okay. Now, when it comes to illegal immigrants, apparently an illegal immigrant costs the UK taxpayer £200 a day. If you want to deport that illegal, it costs you £50,000 to deport that criminal. Now, I'm just reading the figures out. I'm not here to debate them. I'm just reading them out. If an illegal immigrant decides to leave voluntarily, they can receive anywhere between £3,000 and £10,000, depending on the people that are negotiating with them. In 1990, so this is interesting figures. In 1990, there were 45,000 prison cells available, and there were 44,000 prisoners. In 2026, which is really interesting, there is 90,000 spacers and 87,000 criminals. Okay, since 1990 to 2026, we've had a 94% increase. Okay, in prisoners. Now, whether or not that's the justice system, the society breaking down, we're not quite sure. Now, the most recent prison was built in 2025 at a cost of 400,000 million. Okay, so 400,000. Okay, million. Okay. 400 million. Yeah, 400 million. Okay, that's in 2025. The previous newest prison to that was built in 2023, which is HMP Fossway, which is on the A46, the Fossway, Leicester. Okay, now in 2025, the HM Millsike was a 1,500 capacity prison built for Category C prisoners. Okay, the previous one to that was built in 2023, which is HMP Fossway, which holds 1,930 prisoners. So, I don't know, let's say in the last 5 years, we've only had a 3,000 place increase in prison spaces, and probably we've had maybe double that or maybe triple that in prison offenders. Now, interestingly enough, okay, a private company called MITRE Care. Okay, MITRE is like a health and safety company type thing, privately run. I would imagine it's got ties to the government, etc., etc., shares in the government, etc., etc. They have got a 10-year contract that cost 329 million. Okay, it's a contract. Okay, it's not the people there are not employed by the prison service. They're not employed by the UK. They're employed by a private company. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, it turns out that the PFI contracts that I've spoke to you many times before about, apparently PFI contracts that were associated with the prison services were basically banned in 2018. However, I find it interesting that the company called MITRE have a £329 million contract over 10 years with, of course, the government. No wonder the jobs aren't there. Know what I mean? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got to say for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll give you some more information on the company called MITRE. Jason's just flicked up a WikiLeaks thing, so I'll have a look at that. Anyway, listen, take care. Have a great evening. We will, of course, see you all again. We will, of course, see you all again tomorrow, which is Friday the 14th. Now, we're not quite sure whether or not Friday the 14th will actually be my fellow Americans. The storm is upon us. Who knows? Anyway, we are moving forward very, very fastly in whatever's going to happen in the future. Don't be surprised if people like Donald Trump and all of the associated people, and of course we're talking about Starmer and Hancock and Whitty and all them. Donald is always referring to everyone as central casting. And so, really, really don't be surprised if, it turns out that Donald is, of course, central casting. And, as I've always said to you before, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Great advice given to me by my father many, many years ago in regards to business. In regards to business, etc., etc., etc. And so, I suppose that at this stage in the game, I suppose that we can't really trust any man or woman, which is a very sad state of affairs. I'll leave that one with you. Anyway, take care. We will see you all again soon. Cheers, bye.